and welcome to another episode of your Bish Therapist podcast. And today I am so excited and honored to have my friend, Kristen Gardiner. You know her as Driving Mom Crazy on Instagram. I'm so excited to have Kristen back. Hi, Kristen. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, I'm excited to be here.
Yes, for those who don't know, Kristen, you were on the show a while back. We talked a lot about mental health. And can you explain to folks a little bit who maybe don't remember that episode? You are such an advocate for mental health, especially postpartum and perinatal mental health. Can you give people a little bio of how'd you get started in all of this?
Well, I'll try. Basically, I started my blog a long time ago talking about lots of things with child safety and car seats. And then I kind of also touched on my own mental health experiences and just kind of leaned into talking about that more. That's where I felt kind of led to put my energy into talking about maternal mental health and things that I wish I had known before I started having kids, because I kind of felt completely blindsided when I started experiencing depression during my first pregnancy, and has gone pretty much on and off, continuing ever since then. And it's been like
Mm.
17 years now. I can't believe it, since I first had my
Wow.
first baby. But yeah, I love sharing motherhood stories, memes, just trying to get through this experience, get through life with a little bit of humor, along with discussing the real stuff, the hard stuff, because that's really what we need to help each other through this.
Yes, I fully agree. And that's one of the reasons that I really adore you and I gravitate towards you because you're someone who uses your experience, strength, and hope to help other people. And those are my kind of people. And you do it for the love of the game because you want other people to have better resources than you had and to help other people. And so I'm really grateful you're here today because we're going to talk postpartum mental health issues and perinatal health issues in the Valley, especially because the most recent episode of the Valley had me raging, honey. Rage, rage, rage. So today, Kristen and I are going to talk the Valley. We are also going to talk about Summer House because the last episode I did a post that blew up even bigger than my Southern Hospitality one. And I was like, oh, what is happening? So I guess there were some points that people really liked. So we're going to talk about that too. And before Kristen and I get into all that, I have a very exciting YBT announcement.
I'm so
Kristen doesn't even know
excited.
what this is. I kept you in the dark too. So I have been in the weeds lately and managing a lot of different things. And I wasn't sure which way I was going to go with this, but I am happy to report that I have hired an editor and a producer and will now be doing more episodes of your Bish Therapist podcast every
That's
week.
amazing.
Oh, oh!
Congratulations. You're going all in, baby, all in.
All in, baby. And not only that, but we will also be working on YBT merch
How
very
fun.
soon. Yes. So, over the last couple of weeks, things have been really challenging. I have been taking care of my 98-year-old grandfather, who, from what I understand, caring for a 98-year-old man is very similar to parenting a 3-year-old child. Lots of having to talk about you're not the boss of people. Remember to use kind hands. Let's wash our hands after we use the restroom. There's a lot of
Yeah,
similarities.
caregiving.
And
You're
so,
you're being a caregiver, and it's
yes,
hard work.
yes, caregiving is hard. And I was really at this precipice where I was like, I can't, because for me, the most heinous part of this whole process is editing. When I do a podcast, I could do this all day. I could do podcasts every single day, but the editing part was just like a huge block. So the other part of the announcement is that the editor and producer that I've hired is none other than our dear friend Brady from Recap
Oh,
Rodeo.
yay.
Yeah. And so Brady is, this is kind of an experiment for he and I. This is his first foray into this. This is my first foray into this. And the goal is to help each other in this kind of time of transition grow together. And then I want to bring Brady with me wherever I go. So that's the goal. And I'm super stoked about it. Now, the one thing that I'll say is that I do not have my finger on the pulse of what this will look like yet. I'm not going from one episode a week to 5 because that is too extreme and will not work for me. But I will definitely at least be doing one bite-sized bish in addition to the 1-hour episodes every single week. And then depending on my week of caretaking myself and my grandfather, it may be more, but it'll definitely be the 2. So, yeah, I'm very,
That's
very
awesome.
excited. Thank you, thank you, and I hope everyone else is excited too, because Brady and some other people, they knew that I was in the weeds, and they were like, "We were afraid that you were gonna say that you needed a break," and here's the honest truth. I do need a break, but my life, I feel like, has always gotten in the way of me doing these things that are good for my soul, and so I am taking the opportunity to, instead of taking a break, try to ask for help and do it different. So for me, this is a seismic shift. Like trusting someone to edit, to do this. I mean, y'all understand that I love Brady and I trust him with my life because this podcast is
This is your
my
baby, and
baby.
it is hard
So,
to trust your baby with someone else, as we see on the Valley, right?
oh, look at that transition. She's a professional, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. First of all, I want to get into the Valley because that's such a good point. But recently, RFK, I'm trying to I
Everyone who
know, I'm
knows
trying to
already
take some
knows
deep
what you're going to
breaths.
say here.
So RFK recently, news broke yesterday that he is trying to push for not prescribing antidepressants because he believes there's overuse, which research does not support in any way, shape, or form. Now, there is overprescribing and overuse of prescribing in every medical context, hospital based, medical, mental health, right? Not all practitioners are
Right.
created equal. That's just period. But what he's doing is so fucking dangerous. Listen, so as someone who I have major depressive disorder, complex PTSD, and cancer, and what I'm going to tell you is that my cancer treatment is as vital for my life as is my mental health treatment and my therapy and all those things that I do for my mental health. So, Kristen, you had some feelings about this.
Yes,
Let's talk.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I have heard him do these shenanigans before, and I talked about it the last time he mentioned, "Oh, coming off of SSRIs is just like heroin, even worse." And it's like, "What? Like, how does that even
Mm,
compute in someone's brain?"
which is, by the way, as someone who is a trained, right? Because RFK is trained in having a worm eat his brain. I don't know what training he has, but what I can tell you is that that is patently false
Right.
information. Patently false. I've seen people withdraw from drugs, from heroin, things like that. And the comparison is so fucking dangerous and problematic. I can't
Yeah,
even stand it.
and he said,
Yeah.
first of all, "I'm an expert because I have done heroin, and I have withdrawn from heroin." I have withdrawn with heroin more than 100 times, he said. So he's an expert, he says, and he's watched people come
Mm.
off of SSRIs, and it was worse, and although that just is ridiculous, first of all, but the last time he said this, I was like, if someone had told me that SSRIs were just like coming off of heroin, I never would have taken them. And I don't know where I
Who
would
would?
be if I had not taken them because they are life saving for me. I still take medication. I've been taking medication for 16 years with like one or two breaks in there. And I don't think
Yeah.
I would be alive if I hadn't taken medication for my mental health. It's just as plain as that.
Yep. Mental health and medical health both need to be attended to. And I don't understand why this administration refuses to understand that mental health is health. And I'm also going to say the same thing that I had the worst clinical depression of my life during the pandemic. And this is a trigger warning, but something I've never really shared publicly, but my voice is loud and I'm not quieting her. I was severely suicidal and really had to work every day to keep myself here and alive. And without therapy and without SSRIs, Team Lexapro here, I may not have been here to share this, to talk to Kristen. These are life or death situations. This is not funny. This is not cute. Ignorance is not acceptable. And I joked with Kristen that, put me in a wellness camp because we
Mhm.
will lead a
Yeah,
motherfucking
that's gonna
revolution.
not go
Put
well
me in
for
one and I will
anyone.
burn.
That's not going to go well for anyone.
Yes. But you had shared with me that yesterday was.
World Maternal Mental Health Day.
Thank you. Yes. And because of what happened, you felt so discouraged that it just kind of paralyzed you and you ended up not posting. And I just want you to share that because I think this misinformation and these horrendous things that are out there have real impacts on people with mental health. And so I just wanted to highlight
Right.
that.
I have really put a lot of effort into trying to highlight these awareness days, awareness months. May is Mental Health Awareness Month, and there's Maternal Mental Health Awareness Week and Day this week. So I was planning on trying to write something new that I hadn't written before about the theme for this year, which is connecting the dots. And it's going from people realizing, okay, this behavior or this feeling that I'm experiencing, being able to name it and being able to connect it to what it actually is, whether it be postpartum depression, anxiety, whatever it is, and realize, oh, this isn't normal. And being able to then get
Mhm.
help and get treatment for it. Because a common theme I have come across, myself included, a lot of women are just thinking, okay, this is just how it is. When you get pregnant, you're hormonal. Obviously, you're tired, you're exhausted. Like, oh, well, that's just what I expect it to be like. And you don't really know that it's unusual or
Right.
that it's a clinical issue. You just don't know.
Right.
So you just are toughing through it
Yeah.
because there's such stigma out there of, well, you don't want to be a bad mom. And if you are experiencing this, you
Mm.
must be a bad mom. Or, oh, this is just normal and I have to tough it up and deal with it because this is life.
Right. And I think your point is so valid. The reason I'm so angry with RFK is because this patriarchal structure, make no mistake, they want women untreated, unmedicated, and crazy. And I'm using that pejoratively to prove a point so that we are easier to control. And if you think that I have a tinfoil hat on and that's insane, you're not
I
paying
mean,
attention.
yeah,
The lack of treatment for medical issues for women. There's this account that I follow, which it's like, tell me a horrifying fact. And she'll say that, the first woman included in a study about women's issues was like in 1975 or something. It's like you find out that the problematic parts of this are so entrenched in patriarchal structures. And these structures also want people to be uneducated because when we're uneducated and ignorant, we are easier to control, which is kind of where we're
yeah.
at right now.
And it's so disheartening to hear comments about SSRIs being demonized when it's one of the simplest and safest and fastest methods of treatment that are available. And
That's right.
not everyone has
That's right.
months and years to go to therapy immediately to untangle all of their issues. When you are having a baby and you need to take care of that baby, you need to be functional now. That doesn't mean therapy's not important. It obviously
Right.
is very important. Some people just might need a little therapy and support and they're okay. But some people, you're not going to get through it without that extra help. And a baby needs their mom. You need to be healthy to be there for them.
They need a healthy, happy mother. It's not always mother or father. They need two healthy people or people around them because this is how generational trauma happens, right? Where untreated mental health issues lead to trickle down effects
Hmm.
for children, for families. And to your point, research shows that the absolute best treatment for depression is therapy and medication management. So, for example, I have complex PTSD. I will go to therapy for the rest of my life because my trauma is that complex. However, without medication, there would be a huge part of that treatment plan missing.
Right.
Huge. Because it's not a matter of like mind over matter. That's applicable for things when it comes to like, geez, I want to take a walk and I don't feel like it, or, little teeny things, not things like overcoming a literal brain chemical neurobiological physiological process.
Right. And what SSRIs did for me is it makes me able to go to therapy and use the tools. It makes me able to try. Like without
Right.
it, you're just stuck in the simplest things like, okay, I have to get out of bed. Okay, I have to shower.
Mm,
And you're just doing the absolute bare minimum of survival. If we really want people to get better, we need
right.
to be able to provide the tools that they need to utilize all the resources that are there.
Right. And so I'm going to move off of RFK because I could rage about this man for
Me too.
7 hours straight. Is what I love about us. The most important part of this that you know it's weaponizing and not helping is because he wants to get people off of antidepressants. There are no changes to resources for mental health. There's no increase in funding. There is no increase in programming. There is no part B to
Right.
this plan. This would be like if someone said, well, we're no longer going to give cancer patients chemotherapy. We're going to do diet and exercise and just thinking positively. And I mean, literally, that's the same. And maybe I'm the only one who can say that because having cancer and mental health issues, maybe that sounds crazy to people, but I'm telling you that's the case. This is so dangerous that there's no other part of this treatment plan. It's just let's take this away and put
Right.
nothing in its place. That's how you know this is abusive, controlling bullshit
Yes.
behavior. Rant over. Okay. So, Kristen, let's move into the valley and talk about some postpartum and perinatal mental health issues. But one thing I want to get your take on is like so many people have a lot of things to say about the valley. And as someone who's been watching it and is an expert in the way that you are, what do you think
Oh
of the
boy.
valley so far?
Um, well, it's not really fun to watch this season. I think that kind of about sums
Mm.
it up. Watching Danny and Luke's reaction to their postpartum wives is infuriating for me. You've gotten some angry texts from me from behind the scenes where I'm like, I can't believe what I am watching. I just cannot believe it. It's 2026. What is happening?
I know. And I'm like, girl, go off because yes,
And,
yes, yes,
just some
yes.
of the other things happening, it doesn't feel fun to watch, essentially.
It feels both dark and
Yes,
boring, which I don't know how that is possible, but I just did a post today about the fact that so I know you didn't watch the most recent episode. I do wish Peacock, like, why can't they air the
I
episode the
know.
same night? Like, I'm not saying right, whatever. It's just such a thing. So, what happened on last night's episode? So, we're recording this on Thursday, of course. This is coming out later. But basically, what Danny did was he threw a tantrum, his little king baby tantrum. Which I just love. I just love clinically reading Terrible Men for Phil. I really do. He was complaining about Nia having the nerve to ask him to put his daughter down for a nap. And he goes in the room and he comes out and he is literally so angry that Nia is eating a sandwich with AirPods in, trying to get one moment of peace without a child feeding from her body, hanging off her body. This man had the nerve to get angry with her and demand that she help him get a swaddle. And it's like, sir, you can't put your child down for a nap and find a swaddle and put
Right?
her in it. And you want to have 4 children?
He's like, "Oh, no,
Um,
I had to be a
what?
father. Oh, no."
He literally said, Kristen, we have a babysitter. Why can't she do this? And it's like, why can't you attend to your
Right.
daughter? Like, blink, blink, blink. I was like, are you out of your mind? And then they go to this like amusement park. And again, for the first time in months, she hasn't had, I mean, we literally watched Nia this episode. She's going into stores like breastfeeding, which I love, by the way, to see breastfeeding normalized without putting anything over yourself. Women do not need to feel ashamed of that. And so I love that she's advocating. And listen, breastfeeding isn't for everybody for a bazillion reasons, but I love the
Right.
freedom of her saying, like, this is what I'm doing. So she's literally has this child attached to her boob the whole episode, and then they don't have a child and she's happy. And Danny says he feels like she's being
Like, what does that even
performative.
mean?
What does it even mean? But do you know what's so performative, Kristen? Is that then Danny literally like has all this venom for Nia, and then he sees the group, and you should have seen the way that his face
Oh,
completely
no.
changed. Yeah, his mask went on, and he was like, "Hey guys!" And I literally wrote, "This man treats other people with more respect than he treats his wife, and that's a real
There's something
problem.
really wrong
That's
with
a real
him,
problem for
and
me."
we are not seeing it all right now. There is definitely a big mask there.
Huge mask. I can see it. I can feel it. And I want to know what you think about this, Kristen, is that I feel like Luke is not a bad guy. He's just like a first time dad that's falling into traps and not doing what
Right.
he needs to do. Like he's failing Kristen, he's failing himself, and he's struggling to manage. But Danny
Right.
feels different. Danny feels like there is this mask and what's under it is very scary. And the way that he talks to Nia, like it's common with partners, right? Your partner is going to see the worst version
Mhm.
of ourselves, especially over time. Because how long have you and your husband been married?
A long time. Uh, 18 years.
Sorry, I put you
18
on the spot.
years.
Right. And my husband and I, we've been married this year, will be 17 and then together
Mhm.
24. And so it's very common that we're going to see the worst parts of each other because that's just
Absolutely.
how partnerships go. But to treat people outside of your home with more respect than you give your wife is a gigantic red
Right.
flag to me.
Everything with Danny is upsetting because you will remember in prior seasons, Nia had postpartum depression and she talked about it. Why would you
Right.
not be giving her more care, knowing that she is at risk of having it again? That is very common for it to happen again. Why would
Preach.
you not be doing more, not less, more? She has more stress, more children, more responsibilities. More has happened with her body. So much has happened. Why would you not be more careful this time around? It seems like he's being less careful, less attentive.
Yes, that is such a good observation. And I absolutely couldn't agree more because what I'd love for you to talk about is the risk of when you have experienced postpartum depression once. Can you talk about that a little bit more? Because I know that, you have a lot of information about postpartum mental health issues, but also perinatal mental health issues, which for people who don't know is mental health issues that occur while pregnant. And those are very real issues that really get short shrift and don't get talked about a lot. So, Kristen, from your perspective, what are some of the things that you feel important to share?
Well, I think overall, we are not educating pregnant people and their partners about what to look for, what the risks are, and when they can occur, because that idea to me of getting depression while pregnant was not even anything I knew existed when I was experiencing it. I really just thought I'm hormonal. I'm tired. I thought that was normal. And it wasn't until my husband started getting concerned that I was really had to come to terms with like, okay, something's really wrong here. Like I was calling into work a
Mm,
lot. I was really struggling because I was also in grad school and he was just noticing I wasn't like myself and encouraged me to talk to my doctor,
mm.
which I really did not want to do. And I really didn't want to take medication. I was very scared. It was very, very, very scary because, you Google and you see all these horrible things can be side effects and it can hurt your baby and
Mhm.
all this kind of thing, which a lot of that research is actually really flawed that talked about
Yes.
SSRIs and the harm that they can cause your baby. Some
Mhm.
medications can, yes, but there are a lot of safe ones.
That's correct. Plenty of safe medications because it's more dangerous for women who are pregnant to be
Mhm.
wildly depressed than to take a perfectly safe
Right. And
mental health
that's what my
medication. Yes.
doctor, my OB, told me. She recommended I start on Lexapro. Whoop, whoop. Lexapro sisters.
Whoop whoop, Team Lexapro
But, I was like, "Okay," and then I
sisters.
was researching it some more, and I'm sure she was, like, rolling her eyes when I went back, and I was like, "Well, I don't know, I'm really concerned about the side effects and blah, blah, blah," and that's when she was telling me, like, there are consequences for untreated depression in pregnancy. There's low birth weight, there's preterm labor, there
Yes.
are things that are consequences for leaving it untreated. So, yes, every medication has a risk, but there are also risks to leaving it untreated. And
Mhm.
when she said that, I was like, okay, I understand that because she said, for you and what I am assessing as your doctor, the risk is greater of leaving this untreated than to take the medication. So I said, okay,
Right.
I take the medication. I
Right.
start feeling better. What a miracle.
What a
you know?
mitzvah.
And the way it's supposed to work is that if you're on the right dosage, on the right medication, you just basically feel more like yourself. You don't feel numb. You don't feel high. You don't feel any of these other things that the fear mongers are saying.
Right.
So I was like, wow, like this really worked. I'm so
Yes.
happy, that I just feel normal. And I think people that are coming in, they're pregnant, they need to know that there are risks and that this could happen and what to look for the specific symptoms. It's not enough to say, well, you could get depressed because what does that look like? It can mean a lot of different things.
Right. Yes. And that's why I love that you're talking about this because sometimes we don't know
Mhm.
that we're depressed. We just think, oh, I'm tired. I have less energy. I'm just not
Mhm.
interested in things. Because of the lack of awareness and the demonizing of this, I feel like we're told, oh, well, you're being lazy. Like there's so much mom shame and guilt and just person shame when it comes to all these medications. But to your point, leaving something untreated is always going to be worse than a potential side effect of like even
Right.
Tylenol has side effects. And that's what makes me wild where people will pick and choose the medications that they want to
Right.
demonize and be fearful of. And I
Right.
don't like that.
And,
Don't like
it's
it.
not just crying, it's not even always sadness. It can just be like a disinterest or just feeling paralyzed almost and being able to interact with your own life. And a lot of people don't
Right.
recognize that. And usually, at least what I've found from myself and talking with friends and other moms, it's usually someone else saying, "Hey, I think you're depressed," where they finally actually look at it and say, "I guess I am experiencing something that's not my typical or normal behavior or feelings." And that's why I say also the partners need to be
Mhm.
educated because they need to be looking out for the person that is going through this experience.
Right, not shaming them and making them
Exactly.
feel worse. If you're triggered by the valley, this is why. And here's the thing, I've never had a child. I lost my ability to have children after ovarian cancer. And while I'm very happy with my decision now because I need to take care of myself, it is never not going to be hard that I lost that choice and that option. And I think that whether you're a parent or not, my point is that it's triggering to watch men and partners say, well, I'm going to contribute my sperm to this. And then that's where it stops. Like, I know I'm being drama because that's definitely drama, but
Right.
don't do that, right? Being a partner is being able to notice when your partner is struggling with their mental, physical, emotional health, whatever it is, and to be a support like your husband did to say, hey, I'm noticing this. Could you imagine how much different your life would have been
It
if
would
you
be
had a
horrible.
Danny?
It would I don't know, I shudder to think of what my life would be like with someone like him, and honestly, like I said, I don't even know if I would be alive if I had been talked out of getting help because as my pregnancies
Yep.
went on, it got worse. So by the time my 3rd pregnancy was there,
Mm.
I was having suicidal ideation, and it wasn't to the point where I really thought I would act on it, but I was having those thoughts like, "I wish I was in a car accident, and
Mhm.
it would be great if I didn't wake up tomorrow." It was more passive, not really
Yes.
wanting to do something, but really just not wanting to live anymore. And that's a scary place to be.
As someone who has survived a lot and helped a lot of people manage things, the scariest thing I've ever experienced was suicidal thoughts because of severe depression. Because what people don't understand is that your brain is
Mhm.
literally lying to you. Like, I had myself convinced that life would be better, and that was so far from the truth. So I think that's what I really want to point out too is that depression and anxiety, it
Mhm.
lies to us all the time. And that is why it's so important to have a partner or someone who is grounded in understanding and helping us understand that that simply is not
Right.
fact. Feelings are not fact. But to your point, without that support, without that intervention, again, neither of us may be sitting here. And so, what are some of the things that you want people to know about any of this in your experience? What are some of those important
I think
pieces?
first that while there are some risk factors that make it more likely that one person might develop perinatal depression and other disorders like anxiety, OCD, PTSD, all the things can happen. It's not just depression. And there are risk factors for some people, like a family
Right.
history, different kinds of stress, different kinds of life circumstances like poverty, lack of social support, and other challenges that can make it more likely. It doesn't mean that you have to have a risk factor. It can happen to anybody. It can just happen for no reason, and you don't
Right.
have to feel guilty about that. or like it's your fault. Sometimes things just happen
Mhm.
and you can't really explain it.
Yeah, I mean, I know this is rudimentary, but it's like being born. I
Mhm.
have blue eyes. I have blue eyes. They're blue. And my brain is doing what it's doing, and you can't change that. And so that's such a good point because, yes, those risk factors are huge. And I'm glad that you shared that. But you can have zero risk factors and still really struggle because, again, it is a neurobiological process. Let us not forget. This is not just bitches be crazy.
Right? Throughout history, a lot of women's issues have been minimized so much, and
Mm.
that we are not always getting the gravity of what is actually happening to a woman during
Mhm.
pregnancy and birth and postpartum. Until I went through it, I was like, I just had no idea. I mean, when you go through it, you're like, holy crap. Like, what is happening? Like, no one told me this. This is all like really weird and sometimes terrible. And what
Yeah.
like, I didn't sign up for this in my mind, you know?
Right. And the fact that, this has been going on since the dawn of time, the fact that women still are unprepared because we're not talking about these
Right.
things is just, we all deserve better than that,
There's
honeys.
no
We all
reason
deserve
that we
better.
shouldn't be prepared. There's no reason. We have all
No.
the technology in the world and all the ability to know this information and disseminate it, but yet it's still not happening. And that speaks to the bigger problem.
Exactly. And that speaks to my rage towards RFK because it's like, this is not just a dangerous man saying dangerous things. People are going to die if these things are enacted. And because of this messaging, like you said, there might be someone who says, oh, what? It's worse than getting off heroin. Well, then I'm not going to do it. Being completely unaware that
Mhm.
that's false.
Right.
And so I think that's why for us, it's so important to use our platforms, to use our very loud voices, to encourage people to do what's best for their body and not follow a man whose brain has been eaten by a worm, and it
Yeah.
shows.
It's just so puzzling, him. So
So,
puzzling.
so puzzling. Oh, you know what, Kristen? I have to tell you this. So last night on the episode, the one thing that Kristen mentioned is that she had her first period since giving birth. And she was talking about like the experience of that and that she was wearing mommy diapers at the amusement park. And the reason why I bring it up is because I just don't feel like people attended to that enough. Of course, it's like
Mhm.
you're asking this woman who I believe has postpartum anxiety. That's my observation.
Yeah.
She is going on her first trip, which by the way, we remember that Kristen is an anxious traveler. She's not a good traveler. And I respect I'm a very anxious traveler too. Because when you're traveling, by the way, if you're wondering why that is, it's because we don't have control. Our environment, our circumstances are different. We don't have control. There's a lot of moving parts. So a lot of people with anxiety find traveling very challenging. So
Mhm.
if you do, you're not alone. I have to like put myself down like a horse before I get on a plane. It's actually ridiculous. But I feel that Kristen was like trying to, people wanted her to go on these rides and do all this. Her body is like, the first period after like a baby is just like a wild experience from what she said. I mean, and I'm certainly not asking you to go into things that you're not comfortable with, but the
Oh, we
point
can
is
go
that
into it, baby.
she was like, "This is great," and everyone's just like, "Come on, Kristen, go on the ride." And it's like, would you wanna go on a ride if you were bleeding profusely, wearing a diaper, anxious about leaving your child on your first trip? Like, why is no one attending to this
I know.
woman's emotions?
It's crazy. It really is crazy, and I might be a little TMI here for a minute, so just warning to people, but,
Okay.
people are like, "Oh, pregnant, you're so lucky you don't get a period for 9 months." It's like, "No." What happens is your uterus is saving it up. When you have the baby, it all comes out at that time at once. So you're having 9 months of periods. If you have like a 5-day long period, okay, that's 40 days of bleeding. And then you just get like 40 days of bleeding after you give birth, essentially.
Mhm,
It's that
mhm.
bad. It's insane the amount of blood that
Woof.
comes out. Like it's scary sometimes.
And that's another good point because it's like women are used to like when you have a period, but then it's like on steroids. I imagine your brain would be like, oh, I am dying. This is not sustainable. Like, how can I survive this level of blood loss? It really does do something to your brain.
It's scary. I mean, I remember being in the hospital after my first, and the first time you get up and go to the bathroom, everyone knows this that has done it. And you're just like, you're literally, like, dripping blood everywhere, like, on your way to the
Yeah.
bathroom, on the floor, and I'm
Mhm.
crying, and my husband's trying to, like, wipe it up, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm so
Oh.
sorry, like, I didn't know what this was gonna happen, like, I didn't know it would be like this," and, he's like, it's fine," or sometimes the nurse is right there, and the nurse, these labor and delivery and postpartum nurses are angels, like,
Oh, literal earth
they are
angels.
just wiping you up,
Literally.
taking care of you like you're the
Mhm.
baby, because that's what it's like. You have so much that you just can't take care of by yourself, and you are like a baby and
Mm.
having people take care of you, and it's really humbling to be in that position,
Mm.
and you're not expecting that, and,
Right.
I hate this so much. Our own worst enemy is other moms who have been like, "Well, I gave birth and it wasn't that bad,
Ugh.
and it
The
wasn't
mom
that
shame.
painful," or I
Ugh.
bounced back
Come
so
on.
quickly. And I'm like, great for you, but not for most of us, you know? And
Right.
we're like in a
Right.
literal war here, going through a literal trauma. A lot of times it really is a trauma for the way some people
Of
experience birth.
course.
There's a lot of scary
Yeah.
things that can happen. There's a lot of unexpected pain, unexpected surgeries that might come up if there's an emergency. Some people almost die. Like, it's really scary.
Mm.
Then we're like, why aren't you skinny a couple weeks later?
I wheeze laughed when you said
Like,
that.
I'm still bleeding blood, sometimes out of my butt?
Imagine, like, growing a whole human, having it come out, like, a hole the size of, I don't know, an orange or whatever it goes to, and having to apologize for that process. It's just so wild. So, I hope that this conversation validates every single person who is just so rageful about this, because going back to the valley, that is the one thing that I do find I'm happy to be in this space because people are literally triggered. Like, they're not just mad,
Right.
they are actually re-experiencing painful emotions, watching the things that happen to them, and that's why people are so upset.
Yeah, it really does. I was surprised at how angry I got, and even though I have, like, a supportive partner, it's just knowing what I know of other people have gone through, I'm, like, mad on their behalf. I'm, like, so upset for Kristen and Nia, like, I
Yeah.
just can't believe that they are having to, like, face these, like, inquisitions about sex and things like that when it's like, "Dude, like, I could have died just now," you know? Like
And your body is being used to house and feed children,
Right.
okay? Like, literally, and they're like, "But where does my penis fit in?" Well, it fits in fuck off.
Yeah.
That's where it fits in. Fuck off, okay? I mean, it's
It's
just so
ridiculous.
ridiculous.
Like, I just can't even believe it, and what I commented on your post, and you repeated on your podcast, is that if you are not too tired to
Mm,
complain about sex, if you have enough energy to complain about sex, you are not helping enough. You
that's
should be
right.
as tired as your partner. Even if she's breastfeeding, you should be up helping with the baby, giving her water, giving her snacks, changing the baby's diaper. There are things you can do. And then someone might say, well, he has to go to work the next day. It's like, well, she's also working the next day, but at home with the
Right.
baby. We all need our
Right.
mental health and we all need our sleep. And you can also work out different schedules where maybe like he stays up. My husband would stay up late with the baby and I would go to sleep early and then we would switch in the middle of the night. So that way we both get sleep. Like there's ways to do it. But if you have enough energy where you're like, I gotta have sex, like, why can't I have sex? Like, you need to use that energy, sir, elsewhere. And right now, it's with
Yes.
helping your family and helping your wife and your baby.
Bloop, bloop. And that I just kept repeating that point because it was such a good one, and I was like, "Yeah, man, you're completely right." So before we move on to Summer House, any last thoughts about the Valley, this postpartum stuff that we haven't talked about? Any other thoughts about any of it?
I just really hope that Kristen is doing better. I mean, Nia seems like she's not experiencing as much struggle as her mental health as she did with her last pregnancy. I do feel a lot of concern for Kristen. I hope she's gotten some more support. And,
Mhm.
I'm glad that they're speaking about it too, because it is
Yeah.
getting more information out there so that people can understand that when you go into the decision to have a baby, or, sometimes it just happens, but there's a lot more to it than just let's get pregnant and have a baby. There's a lot more to prepare for. And your mental
Yeah.
health is one of those things. We really should be like thinking ahead. Like, what if I get postpartum depression? Like, do I have a therapist I can call? Because the worst time to try to find a
Mhm.
therapist is when you're feeling like you can barely function in your life.
Well, exactly. And not only that, but there is a massive shortage of mental health professionals. Um, Gee, I wonder why. And, those are such good points. And here's the thing, what I'll say with Nia is I actually feel that she is struggling, but because of her history of like scarcity trauma, I think some of her gratitude actually is like masquerading as toxic positivity due
Okay.
to, like, untreated trauma and mental health issues. That's my
Yeah.
take. I don't know Nia, I'm not her therapist, I could be totally wrong. But I feel like she's always trying to make sure King baby Danny doesn't have a tantrum. Like, she has 5 kids. She doesn't have 4 kids,
Yes,
she has 5
exactly.
kids. So for me, I think Kristen is, like, more open about her struggles, and I think Nia is, like, not safe to have those struggles, so she just beauty pageants it up.
Yeah, that's a good
I don't know.
point. She could be
That's my
struggling a lot
take.
more on the inside, and, it doesn't seem like all is well there for sure.
So, I mean, I'll continue to watch The Valley so you guys don't have to, but I swear to you, it is squashing my soul. So let's move on to the other show that's squashing my soul, which is Summer
Oh,
House.
boy. Ah,
So, one thing I was telling Kristen before we got on is that I shared the other day on a podcast that a show I don't even cover, Southern Hospitality, was like my most viral post. This Summer House post blew that shit out of the water. I have never had so much engagement, repost, sharing, and I was like, oh, I guess I don't know if I'm onto something. Something just like struck a chord. So here was what I noticed about the Summer House episode is that on 3 occasions, 3, Amanda got people to do her bidding regarding her relationship with Kyle. The first was Sierra, the second was Lindsay, and the third was West. And so what I talked about in the post is that to me, once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, 3 times a pattern.
right.
And people are so focused on Kyle, because Kyle's being an asshole, right?
Mhm.
But people are so over focused on Kyle being the sole problem when the other part of the problem is sitting at the table doing psychological gymnastics in ways that I don't even think people are aware of. And to prove that point is like, how Sierra has pretty good boundaries
Mhm.
normally?
Yeah.
She talked to Kyle about separating from Amanda and let him know that that's what Amanda wants too. And that was the first clue to me that she was caretaking Amanda and may have been manipulated. Because let me explain, people pushed back on this like, oh, Lindsay's not being manipulated, she was being messy. But what people don't understand about these women can be very manipulative in ways that are completely unclocked and ignored. And there's something called the duper's delight. Have you ever heard that term?
Not until I read your post. It is very interesting,
Mm.
so go on.
So, duper's delight is a concept where people who are successfully manipulating others will have the shit eating grin and these nonverbals that will tell you that they are delighted by what's happening. And when Amanda was sitting at that table, the screenshots of her face, she was not sad. She was not upset. She was someone who was thrilled, in my opinion, to have everyone in the group arguing and fighting, and she didn't even have to lift a finger or say a word.
That really was crazy.
Wasn't
When you
it?
pointed that out, the 3 times, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that is so true." She
Yeah.
it really was just like that, and
Yeah.
she's just not having to do anything except say, "I don't think Kyle's gonna go for it," indicating she's never gonna ask him for the
Right.
separation, so who gets to go do that? Sierra, apparently, because she knows Sierra has
Mhm.
such a big heart and will, like, say the hard thing and be her
Mhm.
backup, and wow, that was eye-opening.
It was very eye-opening, and I just felt like I could tell that, Lindsay is like a tough gal, and the fact that she I think that sometimes Amanda and women can be so manipulative that sometimes people don't even know how they're being manipulated or doing their bidding. Now, was Lindsay being messy? Yes, of course.
Mhm.
But to be honest, I understand why Kyle flipped because in reality, he's being gaslit about him being the sole problem when Amanda is like looking at West in a towel with fuck me eyes.
Yeah.
That screenshot of her looking at him was so wild.
I did not clock
So,
that
so
until
wild.
I saw someone share a screenshot later, and I was like, "Oh, wow. Okay. I did not catch that." There's a lot I'm not
Mhm.
catching. I was completely fooled, I'll just say, by West and Amanda. I thought West had redeemed himself coming into this season, and maybe him and Ciara would get back together, and I was like, "Oh, that's so exciting." And I always thought Amanda was this victim and, like, Kyle's the worst. And then you go and make me defend Kyle, like, in the end.
I
Like,
know.
come on.
It's like, "Don't make me defend Kyle.
Come on.
Don't do that." Nobody wants to defend Kyle. We're right that it's like he has feelings too. And when couples divorce or separate, the equity is not always 50-50, but all parties in a relationship contribute to the disintegration in some way, shape, or form. So Amanda pretending that she's a victim of this, that she can't have agency or autonomy over the state of her marriage, it's like psychological red flags all day long, to be honest.
Mhm.
What else from Summer House have you been like? Tell me.
I
I don't know. Tell
honestly, to me, the biggest kind of like mind fuck is how sorry I feel for Kyle. Like, honestly, like,
me. Yeah. Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just this whole like lead up to this. I'm like, he's terrible. Why doesn't she leave him? He does all these horrible things. And now I'm thinking, like, what kind of a person did we not see this whole time because we were so distracted by Kyle's, drunken antics and yelling and this loudness that he had that we didn't
Mhm.
see what else was going on. And it really is a humbling reminder that we all have biases and we're not seeing the whole picture of anything. Even if one person is like
Right.
being verbally abusive, like, yes, that's true, right? But
Mhm.
there's more going on. It's not just black and white. There's more going on there. And the other thing is I just can't understand how anyone is saying, "Oh, they're 2 adults, like, who cares if they date?"
Oh my
Like,
god.
what? Like,
Oh my god.
this is coming off the tails of this conversation where Ciara is saying how humiliated she felt and people coming after her by, quote, unquote, "letting a white man humiliate her on TV," and discloses that
Mhm.
to the whole group of how hard that is, that dynamic,
Right.
that racial dynamic is. And then they go and do that after that.
Right. That's the point. The point too is like for people who are saying this is two single people, we are still at this point in the season, and West and Sierra are having this will they or won't they like reunification. And Amanda and West are definitely like, you can say whatever you want about the timeline, but there are things happening.
Right.
There are looks being given, there are dynamics that are changing. West bringing his chair to come and save Amanda from Kyle. Here's the thing. Amanda also, like, I think her and West are both manipulative, and I
Mhm.
think that they might be a perfect match, to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, we thought Amanda was like, to your point, there's no like perfect victim, but Amanda, I think, is much more participative in all of this. But back to that point of like, Amanda and Kyle still aren't even really having serious conversations about divorce. Sierra and West are like rekindling something. And a couple weeks after this, or like a month or so after this, all of a sudden, like, how does that is insane to me that people do not understand that
Right.
or see that, you
Right.
know?
And there's a lot of differing opinions on what appropriate boundaries are for relationships and friendships of the opposite sex, right? Like me and
Mhm.
my husband, we both agree like there should be some pretty strong boundaries of people of the opposite sex because attractions can happen. And you want to
Sure.
safeguard around your marriage. If you care about your marriage, you want to have on the same page of what kind of boundaries are appropriate, like holding hands with a boy. Like I would never
Mm,
do that. I guess for
same.
them, it's always been okay because they show these seasons in the past where Amanda has held hands with Craig, and other people. And
Mhm.
that's so wild and strange to me. Like I would never do that because it just
I
seems like
agree.
a line that is going too comfortable with someone
Right.
that you have the potential to be attracted to. And people think
Mm,
it could never happen to me. It could never happen to them. Like we would never cheat on each other. That's the worst pitfall. That is the worst trap you could set for yourself for any kind of
mhm.
situation is thinking I'm too good to make this mistake or whatever. Like that's
Mhm.
so stupid. And that goes for a lot of things too. Like There's a lot of
Yeah.
safety things in parenting where people are like, "It would never happen to me. I would never forget my child in a hot car." It's like, well, that's the dumbest thing you could do because now you're not being careful. And now you're not setting up a
Mm.
safety net for yourself because we are human
Mm.
and we will make mistakes.
Right. And you know what my therapist always says? And I always talk about this. I use the term reasonable accommodations. A reasonable accommodation is doing things to support ourselves, to give us the support that we need. So, for example, Kristen, when she went on this trip, her reasonable accommodation was bringing her friend to sit for Kaya while she, went out and did her thing,
Mhm.
wearing diapers, but going out anyway, right?
Yeah.
Reasonable accommodation. But the point is that we all need help. We all need reasonable accommodations with things, and pretending a problem doesn't exist or pretending a problem isn't bad is always just going to worsen the situation. So I think it's about attending to ourselves and our relationship. But I agree, like physical contact with other people. If I was holding hands with a guy, my husband would be like, ma'am,
Yes.
excuse me? And also, I wouldn't want that. That's such an intimate thing.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
That's
that
only
just
for
seems
my
weird.
man. Right. Those are all absolutely excellent points. Anything else from Summer House? Any other thoughts that you had?
Well, I think we had briefly mentioned people are talking about Amanda's mental health and going on
Mm.
antidepressants. And I actually listened this morning to the Two T's on a Pod podcast, and Dolores and Tamara were saying maybe Amanda did this because she was on antidepressants.
Of course, Tamara said that because she's a goddamn troll. She is a goddamn troll.
Because
I'm
maybe
so
she was
sorry.
numb to her feelings. And,
No,
you know,
no.
I think it can be dangerous to just make kind of assumptions like that people are still not like also responsible for their behavior just because they have depression and whatnot.
That is one of the dumbest things I've ever heard, and I've been on antidepressants probably for 20 years. I've never cheated on my husband, not one time. I've never stepped out of my relationship. I've never gone outside of my character. That's some real RFK talk right there,
Yeah.
and I am not having it. Now listen, I understand people being curious about that, like, people came into my comments asking about that, just legitimately curious, but to have a platform and to say something like that, being uneducated is just dangerous.
Right.
But listen, Tamara loves to flirt with danger. So,
Oh boy.
misinformation on Tamara, misinformation on. Kristen, thank you so much for being here today. This has been such an enlightening, wonderful conversation. I would love for you to share with people where they can find you, some things that you're doing that people can, support or follow. So please let everybody know.
Sure. I'm on Instagram at Driving Mom Crazy and on Facebook and most of the other platforms as well with the same name. I am not doing anything right now, really. I
Well,
hope to do.
you're doing a lot of work. Well, you're educating. The things that you're sharing today in this podcast, that's what you share on social media, and that's very much doing something. You're doing the work to advocate and to talk about this topic, so I understand what you're saying, but for people who really like what she had to say, please go check her out, Driving Mom Crazy, because you do really good posts.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I do hope to expand into other things like possibly a book one day,
Mhm.
possibly my own podcast of nonsense and shenanigans, but I'm not really in a place to begin that at this point.
Mm,
But, you know,
I hear you,
at
girl.
some point, maybe.
Well, listen, I'll be happy to be a guest. I'll be happy to support you, and we'll see what the future brings for us both.
Right.
So, everybody, please go give her a follow, Driving Mom Crazy. Please don't forget to give your girl a follow at Your Bish Therapist. By the way, I literally deleted TikTok. I completely was disgusted by the ownership of it. I mean,
Right.
listen, all social media is owned by the Dr. Evils of
Right.
the world, but I'm trying to, I don't know, I'm just trying to be in an unbothered lane. So I literally deleted TikTok, and it's just like Instagram and Facebook
Yeah, I think
now.
my profile's still there, but I don't post on there anymore for that reason. I just think it's not worth it to deal with
Yeah.
that and no.
Yeah. I'm not. No, I'm not into it. And where we put our energy and our voice and all that does matter. So that's what I've did. So check me out on Instagram at Your Bish Therapist. Please, if you wouldn't mind, go and give the podcast a 5-star review. And of course, check out my Patreon, www.patreon.com/Your Bish Therapist. We have so much fun over there. I sometimes will do bonus episodes and things like that. Definitely a little bit more personal content. So come over and check out Patreon. So for today, we're going to send love to you and yours and say ta ta for now. Disclaimer: posts are not intended to diagnose, treat, or provide medical advice. Your Bish Therapist is for entertainment and informational purposes only. The podcast, my opinions, and posts are my own and not associated with past or present employers, any organizations, Bravo TV, Greyheart Productions, or any other television network. The information in YBT podcast and on its social media is provided for general informational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat. Please do not act or refrain from acting based on anything you read, see, or hear on YBT podcast or associated social media. Communicating with YBT via email and or social media does not form a therapeutic alliance. Melissa, operator of YBT, is unable to provide any therapeutic advice, treatment, or feedback.